Now I lay me down to sleep is a well-known children's nighttime prayer. But to some parents, it's an organization providing lasting memories of cherished times cut far too short. Here are some of their touching stories. Karen and Beth are two mothers who have one thing in common. They both know what it's like to be told their baby will not live after birth. Independently, Karen and Beth chose to turn this grim diagnosis into a celebration of the life of their baby, no matter how short their time on earth would be. Beth and Kumar, along with their daughter Priya, joined me to share the story of their second daughter's life. Beth, you were 25 weeks pregnant with your second pregnancy, and then your world came crashing down, right?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Well, we went in for a routine ultrasound, and the ultrasound technician didn't tell us anything was wrong, but I could kind of tell that she was acting funny, and she wouldn't give us any kind of results or anything. So she had me go out to the waiting room and wait until my appointment with the doctor. And when the doctor came in, he asked how I'd been feeling and if I'd been feeling the baby move, and I said yes, everything's perfect. And he said, well, I'm afraid that things aren't looking good. And the baby didn't have any amniotic fluid, and he said that could be a sign of the membranes rupturing, or it could be something to do with her kidneys. And he suspected the latter, that it was the kidneys, and he said that it's probably a condition called renal agenesis, that's also known as Potter syndrome, and it's that the kidneys didn't form. She would have no kidneys.
So after you got the news, how did the two of you view your unborn child's life at that point?
We thought that, that she might be suffering in there with no amniotic fluid, and we thought that we should do whatever is necessary to relieve her of her suffering as soon as possible.
Yeah, we were afraid she was suffering.
We were afraid that she was suffering.
Did the doctors?
The doctor said that there, she might be squished in because of the lack of amniotic fluid.
And aside from worrying about her suffering, it was such a shock and such a blow to me that I had some feelings of, the chances were good that she would die in the womb, and I couldn't bear the thought of her passing and me carrying her. And so our first reaction was to terminate.
What made you change your mind?
I realized that this was our baby, just like Priya had been, and that she was as important to us. And after confirming with the doctor that she was not suffering, it was very important for me to know that she wasn't suffering. And he said that she wasn't. That he said that this was all she had ever known. She didn't know any different. So she couldn't know,
Reju, how did the news impact your family?
They were very sad. They were always telling me that something miraculous might happen.
And then on December 26, 2007, Beth and Reju experienced that miracle. They welcomed Kavya Anjali into the world and heard her take her first breath.
I had prayed through my whole pregnancy that if she was uncomfortable, if she was in pain, that God would take her. And if she wasn't, just let her live long enough for me to meet her. And for Reju to hold her, I had carried her for 8 months, and I thought, to be fair, he should get to hold her for a couple of minutes at least.
And he answered your prayer, didn't he?
Yes.
Tell me what happened after the birth then.
They gave her to Reju first. The doctors didn't expect her to live more than a couple of minutes. So seeing him hold her was one of the best sights I've ever seen. And she opened her eyes. She looked at him. And I was worried about whether he would get that chance to bond with her. And I think that she had him from that moment.
When Beth and Reju found out their daughter might not live at birth, they invited a professional photographer to join them at the hospital. This volunteer was able to visually document the life of Kavya and the history of her very brief time on Earth. When we return, I'll talk with Jolene, the volunteer photographer with Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep, and I'll talk with a perinatal bereavement counselor working with parents of non-viable infants.
Whether you're a student needing answers, a parent needing help, or a concerned citizen wanting to make a difference, Life Issues Institute has the resources you need to put your values into action. Life Issues Institute is an international educational organization committed to protecting innocent human life. Life Issues Institute knows what it takes. That's why millions throughout the world turn here for help. Life Issues Institute has authored more pro-life publications than any other entity in the world, and its materials are printed in over 30 languages. Radio broadcasts, newsletters, and a website filled to the brim with the answers you're looking for are just a click away. Go to facinglife.tv and click on the link to Life Issues Institute to find out more about how you can change the heart of a nation.
The loss of a child is always agonizing. During this time, it's important to be surrounded by a support group and have access to resources to guide the parents. I met with an infant bereavement counselor to learn more about the support available to grieving parents. What services are provided to the parents dealing with this tragedy in their lives?
Well, we have the ability to talk with them to see what they truly understand about the situation, where they want to go from here, what is it that they would like to have for the baby, if they're just kind of lost at this point because, oh my gosh, you don't want to hear that your baby's not viable. You want to hear about the good things that are going to be coming up. And so many times they're just stunned. You know, where do I go? What do I do? How should I be acting? What questions should I be asking? And so we help them with those commodities just to say, you know, this is what we could do for the baby. What are your hopes and desires?
Well, how integral are the photos that Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep takes?
Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep chronicles and becomes the historian here. They're recording the birth, the life of this baby. Even if it is a stillborn, it's still the life that has been maintained in mom's body.
Jolene is the owner of Photography by Jolene, located in Cincinnati, Ohio. She's also a volunteer with Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep and was in the hospital with Beth and Reju when Kavya was born. What's the mission of the organization?
To provide professional portraitures for a mother family who has either found out early in the pregnancy that their child, their newborn has had a defect and won't last after birth, or a mother goes in and the baby has not made it. So it provides them with pictures of that child for them to cherish for the rest of their lives that they would otherwise would not have.
Over the past year, Jolene has photographed nearly a dozen infants and their families. Lily is one of the beautiful babies Jolene has worked with. She was diagnosed with trisomy 18, which severely impacts the development of the baby's heart, eyes, ears, and brain. Lily's mother, Karen, joined me to share the story of her daughter's life. How did you find out about Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep?
The care specialist, care coordinator through the hospital had called and was asking me what my birth plan was going to be, and she was aware, I think, of the diagnosis, and I said, well, my plan is I'm going to have her and I'm going to bring her home, and I'd been going online to see other families and what their birth plans were, because this is a totally different circumstance. So we were making the birth plan a celebration. And let's have family, let's have cake. We're gonna need a christening because I may have to do her christening the same day I do her cremation. This all was totally out of my realm of normalcy, my comfort zone. I had no idea what to do, and had to utilize the services online that I found and other families, what they did. And she was the one who had told me about the organization. And so then I had gone on to that location and found Jolene through that and reached out to her, and was just really grateful that even though Lily, to some, don't prepare to bring her home, this is, you know, you could say goodbye early, you could decide to deliver, you could do all these different things, that somebody did see that she was just as important as anybody else. And she, you know, deserved to have these beautiful photos taken of her the day she was born. And I even asked Jolene the one time I talked to her on the phone, I said, will you come out if she's still alive? Or do you only do this if they're not breathing? And I thought, why am I in a position I even have to ask these kind of questions? I don't want to know. You know, I don't want to be in this position. But she's like, oh, no, I'll be there.
When they called me, she had already had Lily, but I was able to get to the hospital within a half an hour. And Lily was alive the whole time. And it was wonderful, and she has 4 other children, and they were running around, and the little boys were jumping up and down, and, you know, and can I take a picture? You know, they wanted to take a picture of their little sister, and it was really, really cute. That one was, everybody was so happy and alive, and it was a different experience. That one was a different experience. And it was when I got the email from Karen that said Lily had passed. It really hit me, and I cried.
Lily defied all odds. She lived for 27 days.
Yes.
And then were you with her when she passed away?
Yes. Well, many said if she's anything like her mother, she'll prove them wrong. She'll come home, and she did. And she was, she had just ate about 8:30, and we were watching TV, and I was talking to her, and she'd roll her eyes at me. I think, you know, we were discussing who or she could or could not date. And, you know, when you have this type of situation, you live each day, you kind of live out their life. And I'm talking to her, and even though she was deaf, she'd roll her eyes, or she'd, you know, kind of talk to me. But she ate, she fell asleep, and as the boys were getting ready for bed, I laid her down in her basket, tried to get them upstairs, and washed up her bottles real quick. I came back down, and she was turning blue. And my oldest ran down the street to a neighbor, and who's a nurse, and she came down very quickly, and she goes, do you want me to try anything? And I had signed a form saying not to. You know, when her time is up, her time is up. And I was like, yes, do something, see if you can do something. I'm not ready for her to go. And the boys were upset. Hospice was called. It was her time, and there was nothing anybody could do.
Coming up, it had been 21 years since Beth last talked to her father. When we return, she'll share the impact Kavya's pictures had on reuniting her family.
Thank you for inviting us into your home. Each week we feature real people who deal with real-life issues head-on. Some of their experiences are uplifting, while others will break your heart. But in the end, the message is clear. Those who follow biblical principles on the issues of life are blessed. Become a partner with us in providing a positive, life-affirming message to help change the way the next generation values innocent human life. Please consider a generous gift to help offset the costs of producing this important quality programming. You can donate on our secure website at facinglife.tv or by calling the phone number on your screen during normal business hours. Together, we can make a real difference for life.
How did these photographs impact your family? Did you find that they were a positive thing to have?
Oh, very positive. They're all over the house. And it just, to me, captured so much of such a perfect day. I will always cherish. She'll never have that opportunity. For a new picture on the mantle, or the boys every year will have newness and Lily won't. So to me, she's always going to be that perfect.
What are some of the misconceptions that society has, and maybe even some of the parents, in the mourning process of a death of an infant?
Many are afraid at first to even think to look at or to see the baby. Maybe if they don't see, then this truly was a nightmare, it didn't happen. But once they're able to look and to see, to hold the baby, and then they realize the reality of it. That's why these photographs are so precious, because the photographers have such an innate sensitivity toward the parents, toward the baby, toward the situation, that they can move so silently in the room and capture that historical moment.
Well, what was it like to have Jolene hovering around the room taking pictures at that time?
We really didn't notice too much.
Yeah,
We took pictures in the operating room and for a minute when we first got back to the room. But Jolene was there and I was so glad to see her. It was just, I hadn't met her before actually, I just spoke to her on the phone, but it was such a comfort that she was there. And she was very non-obtrusive. You know, I didn't really notice her. Every once in a while she'd come in and straighten up my gown or something like that, or ask us to hold the baby's face, or the body a little different so she could see. And she just snapped so many pictures, and she documented Kavya's entire life.
Kavya has a very special meaning, doesn't it?
yes.
Tell me what that is.
Kavya in my language from India, it means either poem or poetry.
And her middle name is Anjali. And that means gift or offering to God. So her name together is offering of poetry to God.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It was one of the things we had to realize is she was a gift from God, a gift from heaven, and we had to release her to Him. Those were the best 2 hours of my life, I think. There were 2 hours of joy and peace and love. I felt God with us. I wouldn't trade them for anything, despite the pain of losing her. I wouldn't trade them for anything.
So here you are in the room. A death has occurred or is about to, and you're with the family at a very personal and intimate moment in their lives. What goes through your mind then?
I was blessed to be here. I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I'm able to do this for this family. I'm glad they called me.
And your mission for them is what in your mind at that point?
To provide the most beautiful, angelic pictures of their child with them. Moments that they can always look back on and say, that was our beautiful daughter, that was our beautiful son.
Now, Kavya lived for 2 hours.
Exactly 2 hours, from 10:56 to 12:56.
So tell me what importance documenting her short life is to you now as parents.
They let us show other people how important she was to us and how much we loved her, and that her life was real, that she was here, that she was a part of us.
You say Kavya brought your family together closer. Now, your dad was one of those people, right?
Yes.
Now, I noticed you're wearing a necklace there, and he made that, correct?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, we found out we were losing Kavya. Her birth date was December 26th. And it started making me think about family and how important family is. And how hard, thinking about losing Kavya made me think about how it must have felt for him to not have us in his life. And I decided to contact him. I sent him a Christmas card with a little note in it telling him about Kavya and why I'm contacting him and a little bit about myself. And
how long had it been since you'd seen him?
21 years. Wow. 21 years since I had seen him. So I contacted him and he emailed me back. I didn't get the email until I was home from the hospital. but he was ecstatic to hear from me. And for Valentine's Day this year, he sent us a box of love, he called it. And inside were some jewelry items that he makes jewelry. So he made a necklace for me, and he made this necklace for Kavya. And he wrote a little paper about what it means. And the green stones are supposed to be like stones of protection, especially for children, like, you know, in Native American and different ancient cultures. And the teardrop kind of represents that he wishes he could have met her, and that he is sorry that he never got a chance to hold her in his arms. And it's wonderful for me because Kavya is so important to us and so important to our immediate family, and to have him as well as my mother and grandmother and my sister, and you know, they all accept her as part of our family, and it was just kind of validates her a little more to us, to have the rest of our family love her and accept her as much as we do.
When we return, how do you think the parents dig deep down inside and pull out the stamina to get through something like that?